Everyone, welcome to Lauren's Scrap Lot. I hope you're all able to tune in today on our regular Tuesday at noon episode. I am doing the Facebook one on YouTube though as well today because we've had some trouble with Facebook Lives. So I'm just trying this to see if it works out differently because hopefully I can see your comments on the side. So hello if anybody's watching, say hi if you are so that I know who's there. And today I have a really fun technique for you. So this card is using a really simple coloring technique known as whitewashing. Sorry, let's get that focusing for you. Maybe a little down. I don't know, something like that. There we go. So it's really, really simple, but it brings your card to life really easily, and you don't have to fine tune or color all the details of a card simply to make it pop. So if you'd like to follow along today, the stamp set that I'm using is called In the Moment. It is in our annual catalog for 2022 to 2023. It was also in the last holiday one, or in the mini, but it's carrying over. So you're going to get lots of life out of this one if you decide to purchase it. And there's 3 really nice focal images. I'm focusing just on this girl and her dog one. And another week I do have a different technique using this lady kind of looking over the beach. So that'll be really fun too. But we're going to use this stamp set. You'll want the painted texture embossing folder just to add some details to your card. And you will also need the white Stampin' Up! Watercolor pencil. So that's found in the Watercolor Pencils assortment number 1 if you're looking for it. So let me give you a few of our paper measurements so that if you'd like to follow along, you have everything cut and prepped. And then I'll show you how to make the card. So I've chosen to use just Jade for my background. Just keep in mind this is one of our retiring colors, so if you like it, make sure to grab it because it won't be around for long, and it does pair really nicely with the evening evergreen here. So, and sorry, I say just Jade. I think I changed my mind and I redid the card. You'll see why. Okay, here's just Jade. Not quite the same. I did it first in just Jade, and then I realized it was retiring and running out. So I switched it to soft succulent. Okay, so pardon me, I will fix that in my little description. Change it to soft succulent. It will pair perfectly with evening evergreen. So our base is going to measure 4 1/4 by 11, and we're putting a score mark at 5 1/2, so our card folds nicely in half there. Now for the inside of our card, we're just adding a couple pieces of cardstock here. So I've chosen to use the evening evergreen because I like how it ties in, and a piece of white. So my evening evergreen is 4 by 5 1/4, and the white piece is 3 3/4 by 5. And if you look in the description on this video, I do have all those measurements listed for you, so you can quite easily go and find them instead of having to keep track of everything I'm telling you. Now on the front, we have one piece of white that you can see I did emboss already. This one is using that embossing folder that I showed you earlier, the painted texture one, and this measures 4 inches by 5 1/4. It will go on the front of our card, but don't attach it right away because we're going to do a little bit of trimming of pieces so that they fit perfectly on there. You'll want a piece of designer series paper. It can be from anywhere you'd like. So this piece is going to need to measure 1 3/4 by 4. Now a little heads up, this piece that I'm holding right now is from the Eden's Garden designer series paper. And when I first designed the card, and I've had it in my little drawer, that paper was current. However, we don't have it anymore. You might have it in your stash. It was this gorgeous assortment of gold and green paper, which was really beautiful. However, if you don't own it, we have a great assortment of paper that is still current that you can use as a focal point. So let's say you have the pansy paper. This gingham will be gorgeous in the background. Or you can look through, I don't think I have it because I've used up most of this pack. There is a package that has a bit more of the evening evergreen in the background of that. But you can use the gingham from this one. You could go a little funky and use the Into the Wild set. There is this guy right here. Could do some leopard print. And that's kind of fun. You know, maybe she's got like a blanket or a pillow that's with this pattern, but this color scheme would fit perfectly. And last but not least, I just grabbed things off my shelf. If you had the symmetry paper here, there are numerous pieces you can use. There's some leaves. You can keep looking through. You can even tie in some of those like colors, extra colors if you want, because the yellow and the coral will definitely still complement. You could do the paper color scheme blue if you want instead too, if you need that piece. So it's totally up to you. This is your card. You play with it however you want. Even this bumblebee piece would be really nice too. So these are just alternatives. If you don't own that Eden's Garden paper, then you don't need to stress. Okay, so put those away. And then one last piece that you're going to need to cut, you will need one of your stitched rectangles here. This one is, I think, the second or third largest one. And then you need a piece that goes inside of it, like this. We're actually stamping on this focal piece so that it kind of comes off the page a bit. This little piece you'll need to cut to 2.5 by 3 3/4. Okay, and then you need a few pieces of scraps. So I've just cut some pieces of crumb cake here. This is just a strip that's 1/4 inch wide. It will end up being 4 inches long, but I like to just cut it long so that if I need to trim later, I can. And then another scrap for me to do my stamping the sentiment onto. So this one right now, I've cut it 3.5 by 1/2, but it's your choice. You can cut longer. You can even cut it a little shorter if you want. As you can see, that piece gives me plenty of wiggle room for me to be able to work with. Okay, so we're all ready to get going. What I'd like to do is assemble most of the card and then teach you how to do this last little piece here, okay? So let's grab our card base and we'll put those 2 pieces that I've tucked inside in place. And this I like to use either just some double-sided tape or some seal, completely up to you. And we're just not using dimension on the inside of a card because you don't really want your card popping out unless it's got, you know, a feature that's purposely doing that. So let's add some tape here. Oh, doesn't want to stay. There we go. And that can go red on the inside. Now this white piece is mostly for you to write on, but you certainly could come back later and you could stamp something, you know, in the corner to see the very, like a little flower pot or something like that to decorate your card, but it's totally up to you. For now, I'm just going to leave it white. There we go. Now on the front of my card, I mentioned we're going to add pieces together on this white first. So move your base out of the way and let's attach our designer piece to the white here, okay? So once again, something flat, tape or seal to get that on the base here. And the measurement I gave you, it's totally up to you. If you want to cut something that's taller, like 2 inches or even more, it could take up half of the card. So really this designer piece, you need to keep it 4 inches wide, but apart from that, you can make it however tall or short you'd like. Okay, so just make sure one of those corners is lined up perfectly. And then we're going to add our little strip of crumb cake. That is best added either with the Tombow liquid glue, or if you want to be diligent, you can cut one of the pieces of tape in half. Okay, So what I've noticed is when I emboss a piece of white or any color, sometimes it shrinks a tiny bit. So even though I cut this white piece at 4 inches and I cut this designer series paper at 4 inches, you're going to see the designer series paper is hanging over the slightest little bit. It's because the fibers and the paper have kind of pulled in a little bit once I've ran them through the embossing folder. So this is why I do this separately, because it's very easy now for me to just simply take my snips, or I could use my trimmer again, and trim that excess off, okay? It won't be super noticeable on a card, but it does make it really nice and clean if you're able to just tidy up that edge piece, okay? So that part is done. We're gonna pop this one up on dimensionals to give a little bit of lift. Make sure you do the whole perimeter. And because we're putting a lot of detail on top of it, I like to make sure there's a couple dimensionals on the inside here too. Okay. So now before you attach this piece to the front of your card, you want to make sure the front of your card is opening the way that you want it to, which right now for me is opening to the top of my workspace. And that means my designer series paper is closest to me here at the bottom. So just make sure it's the right way. Otherwise you're going to be sad, have to cut these out and kind of start over, which is a pain. Okay, so here is our card up to this point. Now we're going to grab that stitched rectangle, and there's a couple different, sizes that will fit in the middle here. So it's totally up to you. You choose whichever one you want. Before you cut them, just play around, see what fits for you. I just picked the one that she fit into the center of most succinctly. So we're popping this little guy up on dimensionals, and that's going to be the focal point of my card. So I really do want to make sure it's nice and straight and kind of centered in the middle of the card. Okay, so now we have a couple jobs that we need to emboss. So I'm going to move this to the side. I'm going to move this to the other side so you can still see what I'm doing. And I'm going to bring in that extra piece of crumb cake so I can do my little sentiment, and my piece of evening evergreen. And that's here. So I've done it also separately in case we've made a mistake. You're not having to cut a whole nother stitch rectangle out. You can easily just turn this over and try once again. But you will see this technique is very, very simple. You're going to have so much fun, so don't stress. So you're going to need your Versamark sticky ink. You're going to need the beautiful girl and her puppy. Ink that up really nicely and put that just right in the middle of this rectangle. Okay. And now we've got some white embossing powder. I like to use one of these old trays we used to have. If you don't have them, grab like a Tupperware bowl or a plate or something that you can just easily make a mess in. Tap, tap, tap really gently. Now don't bump this because it's not set yet. We do have to use our heat tool, but we have one more piece that we need to stamp so that we can do them both at the same time. So I chose the "You're in My Thoughts" sentiment, and I'm just going to stamp that close to the edge here. Okay, doesn't quite matter because I've given myself tons of space to work with. And it should have enough scrap in there. There we go. So there is my sentiment. I'm just going to quickly put this embossing powder away because I have a tendency to bump this and make a mess. Okay, so we don't need that anymore, and you don't need your ink. Go ahead and put those two away. So we're going to grab our heat tool. You won't be able to really hear me as the heat is on, but you will notice that my images are going to go from this like powdery kind of grainy look to a really shiny look. And as soon as I've kind of hit that shine, I'm going to move on to a different part of my piece. So let me start with the girl here. I moved my tool around so I can actually reach. Okay, here we go. Okay, white is a little tricky to see. It's easier if I use a gold or silver, but hopefully you can see this bottom section, it will look a little shinier to you guys. And this top part is still pretty dull. So that top part I haven't heated properly yet. It still needs to be done. This bottom part, now that it's good and shiny, is set and ready for me to color on. So let me just finish this up. There we go. Okay. I should have probably just grabbed her scissors or something to hold that in place instead of it continuously running away, but I got it done. Okay, so for this guy, we're gonna put him aside for the moment. We will deal with that at the very end. We're gonna focus on this lovely gal, okay? So I'm gonna show you the simplest of coloring techniques. It's very easy. All we're gonna do is take that white watercolor pencil and shade some of the sections of this stamp. It doesn't have to be pretty because the embossing gives you a really nice bumper to work against, and it will just bring your image to life. Okay, you can see already there's a difference in contrast. The white will still show the green underneath, and then you can just continue coloring. Okay, so I'm gonna color her like pillow in the back, and maybe this like sleeve. She looks like she's wearing like a onesie or a snuggie oodie thing, whatever they're called. It's very large, but she looks rather cozy. Okay, and then maybe we'll color her pants. So it's very, very quick and easy. All you're doing is kind of scribbling in this section here. It doesn't have to be pretty. You're just wanting a little bit of white focus. Okay, there's her socks. Do the other side of her blanket here. We'll leave her coffee cup alone down in the bottom here. You could always do that in a different color. Oh, didn't emboss that part correctly. Oh well. I can fix that line. Pretend it's not there. There we go. Nobody can tell. Now, let's say, before I do this part, let's say I accidentally started coloring in her book. And I'm like, oh no, I don't like that. Any eraser from any pencil will be your best friend to just quickly and easily come into this section and erase. Okay? You don't need to stress. You don't need to fret. Any eraser from any pencil will fix that little mistake for you. Because I did that the first time. I started coloring on the dog and I was like, oh, it's kind of blended too much. It doesn't look great. So now I did think it was really cute to kind of do a little bit of coloring down under her just to give a little bit of shadow effect. So all I did was I just scribbled kind of along the lines that Stampin' Up! Had, kind of about a 1/4 inch, maybe even just an 1/8 under that section. Nothing super defined, just a little shadow effect. Okay, and that's it. This was the simplest little coloring exercise ever. It was white. You can erase it if you don't like it, and you didn't have to be perfect because we actually want some of that green shining through. We don't want you to sit here and color really hard and detailed. You just want the slightest shadow of an effect. So now that you're happy with this, we're going to turn this over and put a flat adhesive on so that it sticks directly to the rectangle underneath. And sometimes when you heat a paper, it does like to bend a little bit, so make sure you've got lots of adhesive in this space so that all 4 of those corners are going to be nice and snug. So put those within the little stitch lines. It will just barely fit on the top and the bottom. There we go. And now for our little tag. So I decided it would be fun to just snip a little angle. So wherever your Y is, we're gonna just kind of snip right in front of it a tiny little angle, like so. Now we're gonna attach it to the card. It will hang over the side, but we'll trim it later. That's why I told you to cut it way longer than you need, because then you don't have to be perfect in where you put the stamp. So let's turn this over, put maybe 2 or 3 dimensionals across this space. Actually just 2, because you only actually want the words up on dimensionals. You don't want this little section, because otherwise it'll bend down towards your card. So let's just say 2 in this top section here. You can line it up wherever you'd like. I thought it was kind of perfect, just pointing right to this crux of her little hair bun. Okay, and now you have this excess hanging over. We're going to give that a little bit of a trim. Okay, so actually, I don't actually like that because I can't see your thoughts. So let's try this once more. Here we go. I'm going to make mine a little bit longer. How about that? My S was about to get cut off. Okay, turn this over and just trim that little piece. Okay, now to decorate, because we need some bling, I'm using my little gold and silver metallic pearls. So I just grabbed a few of those, kind of one up in the top, and then a few of them over by her book. You can certainly add more if you'd like. I thought just a little bit of focus kind of around the sentiment was fun. So there is our card. Now I would like to show you what you could do in the opposites theme. So let's say you wanted a evening evergreen base and you're going to now use the soft succulent as the feature. It's the same card, same measurements, just using the opposite color palette. Okay, so everything I told you was one color, you'll just switch to the opposite, and it's really fun to see how white kind of makes a different color come alive. And one last thing, if you enjoyed today's card, and if you're in Canada, I have a specialty coloring class coming up at the end of the month. So I have made my updated calendar. So on Lauren's Scrap Lot, you'll see events both for monthly club and for this creative coloring specialty class. The kit is $25 or free with a $60 order. And we're going to use the Blessings of Home stamp set to make a set of 4 cards. So I have 4 different coloring techniques that are all very, very easy for you to enjoy. One of them is the whitewash technique with a little twist, and then we have 3 other ones as well for you. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I can send you the details, and we'll get you signed up. I can mail kits anywhere in Canada, and you can enjoy them whenever they arrive. But thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you like these 2 cards, and I hope you enjoyed the little technique that hopefully you can do quickly and simply with any stamp set that you own. I will see you guys next week, and I'll